Oh my gosh. My butt's officially.
Good afternoon and welcome to the March 21st meeting of the City Plan Commission. My name is Margaret Livingston, Chair of the Commission, and I call this meeting to order at 1:31 p.m. We will now hear a statement to the public.
Statement to the public. The City Plan Commission has sole and final approval authority over subdivision maps. Although the Commission is sole and final authority with respect to subdivision approval, this authority is statutorily limited to a ministerial examination of the application's conformance to all applicable code provisions. The staff report for an agenda item may include conditions, exceptions, or modifications. If the Commission does not wish to approve an exception or modification or require a condition, then the Commission's motion will state which have not been approved. Otherwise, the staff report, with all modifications, exceptions, and conditions, is approved and the applicant shall comply with all provisions of the staff report. All agenda items other than subdivision items will be conducted in the form of a public hearing. The chairperson of the Commission may allocate and limit the time of persons speaking before the Commission. The normal process is as follows. First, the Commission will hear a staff report, followed by a statement from the applicant. Then members of the public may speak, followed by any final statement from the applicant. Finally, the matter will be closed to the discussion among the Commission. The Commission shall then make a recommendation that will be forwarded to City Council.
Thank you. Any changes to the agenda?
Yes, ma'am.
Madam Chair, before we do the changes to the agenda, good afternoon, Madam Chair and Commissioner. I'd like to take this opportunity to welcome Ms. Elsa Ramirez. She's our new administrative assistant from Parks. I think some of you may have known her before, but we want to welcome her. She's been doing a fantastic job.
Great.
Hey, welcome.
Welcome. Welcome.
Yes, ma'am. Raul Garcia, Planning Inspections. Item number 2, that is not a major preliminary. It shall be listed under public hearing re-subdivision combination. That is a commercial replat. It is not a residential replat, so there's no notice requirement. It's a simple floor amendment. So number 2 shall be listed under public hearing re-subdivision combination. Item number 5 is to be deleted. Items 6 and 7 to be heard together, and item number 9 to be deleted. And those are all the changes.
Thank you. Can I get a motion to accept the changes?
Move to approve.
Motion to accept the changes.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Thank you. We are on today. Call to the public. This time is reserved for members of the public who would like to address the City Plan Commission on any items that are not on the City Plan Commission agenda and that are within the jurisdiction of the City Plan Commission. No action shall be taken. If you would have wanted to speak during that time, you have needed to sign up at the desk by 1:30, and we did not have anyone sign up for the call to public. We do not have anything on the consent agenda, so we'll go ahead and move on to the regular agenda. Item number 1, SUSU 19-00007.
Good afternoon, Chair, members of the Commission. Brenda Cantu with Planning and Inspections. Item number 1 on the agenda is Summer Sky Subdivision, a major preliminary application. And I'm sorry, before I begin, I wanted to make a floor amendment to the first page of the staff report. It's stating under the summary of requests that there's 598 single-family residential lots, but it should be 599. This subdivision is located in the city of El Paso's ETJ, and it's east of Darrington and north of Eastlake. The applicant proposes 598 single-family residential lots, 4 parks, which include a linear park, and 5 drainage ponds. The proposed development will be done in 2 phases. Phase 1 is scheduled to be completed in September of 2020, and Phase 2 will be completed by March 2022. And this subdivision is being reviewed under the current subdivision code, and primary access to the subdivision is through Horizon Mesa, Garforth Avenue, and Winford Avenue. This is a preliminary plat. The applicant is requesting to waive the required 5-foot sidewalk along Horizon Mesa Boulevard. In lieu of the sidewalk, the applicant is proposing a meandering 7-foot sidewalk within the abutting linear park on Horizon Mesa. This is required in the proposed cross-sections. And for the required and proposed for the local residential streets. Development Coordinating Committee and staff recommend approval of Summer Sky subdivision on a major preliminary basis. And that concludes my presentation.
Thank you. Any questions for staff? Nope. Can we hear from the applicant, please?
Good afternoon, members and commission and chair. My name is Chris Wall, and I'm with Tran Associates. We agree with all comments.
Thank you. Any questions for the applicant? Okay, we'll go ahead and close for further discussion or motion.
Motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Thank you. Item number 2, SU 19-00010, and this item is under the public hearing section.
Good afternoon, Chair and members of the Commission. Santiago Vallejo for the record. Item 2 on the agenda is CMC Unit 5, a re-subdivision combination application. The subdivision is located west of Ressler and south of Trans Mountain. Here's the aerial. The applicant is proposing to subdivide 20.596 acres into 5 commercial lots. This application is being reviewed under the former subdivision code. Here we've got the plat overlaid on the aerial. And we've got the preliminary plat and the provided cross sections. And here we have the final plat. So the applicant is requesting a modification to allow for a 5-foot sidewalk and a 5-foot landscaping area within the cross section found on this slide. They're also requesting a modification to allow for 11-foot driving lanes in opposite directions. The overall right-of-way will increase to 56 feet. So planning staff and the DCC recommend approval of CMC Commercial Unit 5 on a re-subdivision combination basis, and also recommend approval of the requested modifications. So yeah, thank you. That's my presentation.
Thank you. Any questions for staff? May we hear from the applicant, please?
Good afternoon, Chair and members of the Commission. Adrian Ontiveros with CSA Design Group. We concur with staff comments with the exception of streets and maintenance. However, we're going to continue discussions after action has been made today. We'll continue to coordinate and find a resolution with streets and maintenance.
Okay, what's the issue? Is there an issue?
They're questioning the acceptance of the proposed right-of-ways as public. However, we're going to continue discussions after today's hearing. We've already coordinated with streets and maintenance. We're just going to continue discussions.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Any questions for the applicant? This is under the public hearing section. Although no one signed up to speak on this item, now would be your chance. Nope. We'll go ahead and close for further discussion or motion.
Motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Item number 3, SU 17-00030.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon, Chair and members of the Commission. Armida Martinez with Planning and Inspections. Item 1 on the agenda is Linda Vista Gardens, Replat B, a re-subdivision combination application. This development is located north of North Loop and east of Emerson at 504 Chula Vista. Access to the subdivision is from Chula Vista. This is a final plat superimposed onto the aerial. The applicant is proposing to re-subdivide .4397 acres. The proposed development is for a single-family home and an existing duplex. This subdivision was reviewed under the current subdivision code. This is the preliminary plat. This is the final plat. This is the existing and required cross-section for Chula Vista. The applicant is requesting an exception to waive the required street improvements to the applicant's proportionate share. Currently, the applicant is short 1 foot of additional pavement and the 5 feet required of landscape parkway. The applicant proposes to preserve the existing configuration of Chula Vista, which consists of a 40-foot right-of-way with 30 feet of pavement and 5-foot sidewalks. Under section 19.10.050A, the City Plan Commission may waive such requirements to provide right-of-way or street improvements to adjacent standard roads if 50% of the lots within a quarter mile of the proposed development have already been developed and the existing street improvements are in character with the neighborhood. The exception request does meet the criteria, as more than 50% of the lots within a quarter mile of the proposed development have already been developed and have similar improvements. This is the quarter mile buffer map. This slide shows the current conditions for Chula Vista to include the subject property. These are the neighboring streets with the same configuration. And planning did not receive any communication, and additionally, the applicant is also requesting an exception request to allow the proposed panhandle lot as per section 19.23.040 due to the unique parcel configuration. So planning did not receive any communication in support or opposition to this request. And with that, planning recommends approval of Linda Vista Gardens Replat B and on a re-subdivision combination basis. And that concludes my presentation.
Thank you. Any questions for staff? May we hear from the applicant, please?
Hello, City Council. My name is Julio Reyes. I agree with everything.
Okay, thank you. Any questions for the applicant? Nope. This item is listed under public hearing section. No one signed up to speak on it, but now would be your opportunity. Okay, we'll go ahead and close for further discussion or a motion.
Motion to approve.
I second.
All in favor? Aye. Thank you. Item number 4, SU 18-00105.
Good afternoon, Chair and members of the Commission. Giovanni Francia with Planning and Inspections. Item number 4 is Sunrise Acres number 1, Replat H. This is a re-subdivision combination. This development is located within the City of El Paso. Primary access to the subdivision is proposed from Polaris Street. This slide shows the proposed final plat on the aerial picture. The applicant proposes to subdivide approximately half an acre of land into 2 residential lots. This slide shows the preliminary plat, and this slide, the final plat. The applicant is requesting the following exception to waive the street improvements for Polaris Street. Polaris Street is a local street, which requires that the right-of-way be a total of 52 feet, consisting of a 32-foot roadway, and 2 10-foot parkways consisting of a 5-foot landscape buffer and a 5-foot sidewalk. The right-of-way proportionate share is 26 feet. The applicant has 25 feet. The applicant is dedicating 1 foot in order to meet the proportionate share. The proportionate share of the roadway is 16 feet. 20 feet currently exists. This is 4 feet over the required minimum. The parkway is currently a total of 5 feet, consisting of only a sidewalk. The 1 foot of dedication will be added behind the sidewalk. The applicant is requesting to waive 4 feet of landscape parkway for Polaris Street and to allow the existing sidewalk configuration to remain. This slide shows Polaris Street. The shot is taken facing northwest. Under Section 1910-050A, the City Plan Commission may waive such requirements to provide rights-of-way or street improvements to adjacent substandard roads. The applicant is applying for the waiver under subsection 1A, which states that 50% of the lots within a quarter mile of the proposed development have already been developed, and that the existing street improvements are in character with the neighborhood. The applicant does not satisfy the criteria under section 1910-050A. This slide shows a quarter mile buffer. And here are a couple of intersections showing the characteristics of the neighborhood. As you can see, they have the required configuration. Planning and DCC recommend approval of the subdivision on a re-subdivision combination basis and denial of the street improvement exception request for Polaris Street. Staff received 5 phone calls inquiring about the proposed subdivision. Staff did not receive support or opposition to the proposed subdivision. And with that, this concludes my presentation.
Okay, I have a question.
Sure.
The denial on the exception, that's just from coming from DCC?
Correct, it's
Okay.
not me.
Thank you. Any other questions for staff? Go ahead.
I was just actually wanting to see on the pictures that you last showed, this is to show how it is right now, and the exception would be not in conjunction with this?
Correct.
Right?
So
Okay.
these are meeting the DSC standards.
Right, okay, that's what I wanted
yeah.
to confirm, okay. That's all.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay, may we hear from the applicant?
Fermin Dorado from Dorado Engineering, representing the owner. The reason for our request on Polaris is because Polaris is 40 feet, all the way from Magnetic all the way to North-South Freeway. It doesn't make sense for us to narrow the street just for that portion of the development. The street is already 40 foot all the way up, all the way down. And it's been like this for the last 50, 60 years. So if it didn't make sense to do it, it will be, but it doesn't conform with the rest of the street. Coming down a 40-foot roadway and then all of a sudden you're in a 4 feet less, doesn't make sense. I think it just creates a safety hazard on it. And if the landscaping is the condition, we'd be willing to landscape behind the property line, behind the curve, behind the sidewalk, and landscape that area. But it doesn't make sense actually to narrow the street from a 40-foot roadway to a 36-foot roadway. It doesn't make, and not only that, it's a very safety factor. Coming down at 40 and all of a sudden you have to hit the curve that is 4 feet into the roadway. So that's the reason for a request.
I believe that was just DCC's recommendation to not, but the city staff is in agreement with granting the waiver.
Yes.
Okay, so you agree with all staff comments? Staff comments. Yes. Okay. Any other questions for the applicant? This is under the public hearing section. No one signed up to speak on this item, but now would be your opportunity. We'll go ahead and close for further discussion or a motion.
Motion to approve both the subdivision and the exception request.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Okay, we're going to move on to items, thank you, 6 and 7. PZRZ 19-00001 and PZST 19-00005.
Good afternoon, Raul Garcia, Planning and Inspections. So items 6 and 7 are city-initiated, a rezoning and special permit for planned residential overlay, and both items are for the same property. So on October 30th of 2018, City Council did approve an item directing staff to look into rezoning the subject property in the effort to protect and preserve the existing ranch farm character of the neighborhood. So as you can see on this slide, showing the zoning map, the subject property is zoned currently R3, with surrounding properties zoned ranch farm and R4. And the request is to rezone the R3 down to an R1 residential. This property is located south of Craddock Street, along James Street. And again, the intent is to protect and preserve the existing ranch farm character of this neighborhood located in the Mission Valley area of the city of El Paso. This is an aerial of the property showing 26 total properties, all with existing improvements. The majority, pretty much all of them, consisting of single-family homes along with numerous accessory structures. The total acreage of the entire area being rezoned is 23.6 acres. There is also the special permit for the planned residential overlay. This will address the setbacks that will be imposed as part of the proposed R1 zoning district. Again, as you can see, the properties there with the existing structures, again, there are no major changes proposed. Whatever is there, it's already there. Those structures are there along with all the street improvements. The overlay is to go ahead and address the setbacks that will be forthcoming under the R1 district. So in regard to those setbacks, of the front setback will be reduced from 30 to 25. The cumulative from 100 to 65, the side from 15 to 0, side street 20 to 5, and the cumulative side and side street from 40 to 20. Again, this is to address the existing conditions of what's already there, the single-family homes, and to bring them into compliance with the R1 district. As far as dimensions, only the lot width is being reduced from 125 to 77 feet. The lot depth and lot area will remain the same as these. The majority, almost all of these properties, are just under 1 acre in size. This is the detailed site plan superimposed on the subject property. So this is the shot of the property along with surrounding properties. To the north, you have vacant and single-family homes in ranch farm zoned properties. To the west, there's the lateral as well as single-family, also zoned ranch farm. To the south, there's vacant property and Loop 375, also zoned ranch farm. And to the east, you have ranch farm and R4 with single-family as well as a pre-K school located there. So with that, staff and DCC do recommend approval of both the rezoning and the special permit for planned residential overlay. Notices were sent on March 8th of 2019 to all property owners within 300 feet of the surrounding area. Staff did not receive any calls, emails, or letters in support or in favor of this request. That concludes my presentation.
Thank you. Any questions for staff?
Madam Chair.
Yes, sir.
If I may.
Absolutely.
I want to say thank you to Raul and also to the resident. This is one very good instance where the city, as a home rule city, exercising its police power to protect and preserve existing neighborhood. One of the reasons the city has the police power, to protect is that the city doesn't want to see the erosion of an established neighborhood because of density. So this area is well established as a very low density residential area, and the city has a legitimate interest in preserving that in perpetuity. So that's the reason this is before you today. So Raul has done a good job, and as long as I also want to thank the residents as well, the homeowners, for working with staff to get it to you today.
Thank you. And just to clarify, that doing this is going to prevent maybe the farm ranch pieces from being zoned a much higher density than R1 because, right?
That's correct.
Okay.
I mean, this doesn't preclude any property owner within the area from asking for a rezoning, but again, the nature of this residential development is low density, so we want to see that continue and preserve.
And changing this is going to help keep that tone.
Correct.
Right?
It will be in line with the lower density
Right.
character of the area.
Great, okay, wonderful. We did have two, Ivan. People signed up to speak on this. Ivan Lopez. And he's here to speak in favor.
Yes.
All right.
I have a small presentation I wanted to show. I can just put it in here, right? Oh, it's on this side.
I see a lot of smiles, that's good.
Yes.
Okay. Hello, Chair and Commissioners. My name is Ivan Lopez. I'm President of the Playa Neighborhood Association. And we're here to speak in favor of this case. Just wanted to speak a little bit about the history behind this, and just to say that the description of the City of El Paso for the neighborhood associations is that neighborhood associations are organized groups of residents who work together to improve and maintain the quality of life in their neighborhood and community. So this is an outline of our neighborhood association. As you can see, it's really close to Loop 375, and the main street would probably be Yarborough, north-south. So within our bylaws, the main statement of purpose is to maintain the rural characteristics of the neighborhood. And so back in January 2018, this was a little bit more than a year ago, all the neighborhood associations around the area, as well as many of them throughout the city, we all came together to speak about this item. That was an item that was proposed to be a development that was proposed in this area that was going to really destroy the character of the neighborhood. And so we came together to demonstrate that this is a very unique area within the Mission Valley, and because of that, we had at that time more than 400 signatures and 50 letters opposing that development. And we came here to the CPC, and all of you recommended denial, and we really appreciate it. We thank you for that. And for some strange reason, after that, a developer is supposed to have, per Title 20, 30 days to come back to City Council if he wants to appeal. But for some strange reason, he was allowed to come back all the way, instead of 30 days, more than 100 days later. Or 97 days, actually, almost 100 days. And so we were here in June 2018, and at the time, the developer decided to withdraw his application, and the City Council actually deleted the item, so it did not go through. And so the main argument that was made at the time when the proposal was made was that they were allowed to build that many homes and that much density and that type of suburban sprawl development that's very typical. And I guess because our area, the neighboring areas, were zoned R3. And we went back to city records, city appraisal records, and we actually found that back in 1980, all of our neighborhood was a ranch farm community. And it was changed to R3 zoning in error. And there was a discrepancy in all of the files that were there. So we came together with City Planning Department, and they actually recommended the city initiated rezoning as well as a neighborhood plan. And so we're actually working on that. But as of today, thankfully, since this graph shows kind of the size of the lots per category, and since we are more of a ranch farm community, you could tell the difference between a ranch farm zoning and an R3 zoning, and that's when the city initiated rezoning and neighborhood plan came through. And so based on unfortunately, back in 1980, the codes were different, and a certain size of lot was interpreted differently than now with the different categories. So we wouldn't be able to move back exactly to a ranch farm community because of the not so much the size of the lots, but more of the setback requirements and dimensions required in terms of width and depths of the lot. And so because of that, we kind of had to compromise to go into the R1 district with a special permit to get closer to that idea of a ranch farm character, and which is really important to us. And so today we're here to concur with staff recommendation, and we're hoping that you really do recommend approval on this. And we thank you very much again because if it wasn't for that back a year ago, we wouldn't be here. So we really appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ivan. Well, you should give yourself a little credit because you fought the fight for everybody. So good for you.
It's all of us here.
Yep.
All of our neighbors, a lot of our neighbors are here. So we all wanted to stand together on this and say thank you.
We're going to miss you, Ivan. Fabiola.
Good afternoon, all, Chair and Commissioners. He stole all my lines, and I'm just going to repeat the same thing, but I have my own speech. For the record, my name is Fabiola Campos Lopez, and at this time I present myself before you as a resident of James Street and member of a Playa Neighborhood Association. Playa Neighborhood Association journey with rezoning case started 15 months ago. After June of last year, when the rezoning case ordeal terminated, Playa Neighborhood Association dedicated endless hours of research, countless meetings, and with the assistance of planning staff, the discrepancy on the zone code was found in our property lots. Our lots measure more than 40,000 square feet, and we were incorrectly zoned as 5,000 square feet lots for the last 40 years. On October 30th of last year, this zone code discrepancy, with all the evidence on record and with the assistance of planning staff, all was presented before City Council, and all representatives unanimously voted to correct the discrepancy and directed staff to initiate the zoning process in a neighborhood plan. With this action, City Council has set a precedent on bringing trust back to the Mission Valley area communities, and because the communities stand united with a defined purpose and follow procedure in accordance to the law, the outcome has resulted as expected. A neighborhood plan will follow, in which it will maintain and keep the rural and open character of the established community, and consequently, any new development to come could be in conformity with the existing for the health and safety of the whole neighborhood. We also understand that our journey is not totally over, but we have complete confidence that Playa is a part of a bigger vision. We share the uniqueness as Sunny Fields, Pueblo Viejo, Mockingbird, just to mention some. The livelihood character of the Mission Valley is here to be preserved. Thank you, CPC, for supporting Playa Neighborhood Association community on its moment last year, and recommended denial at that time. Thank you, planning staff, for your guidance. Thank you, Raul, for backing us up on this one. At this time, we concur with planning staff comments. Thank you.
Thank you. And I appreciate you thanking the planning staff, because they do work very, very hard. Thank you. Okay, any other questions for the applicants, the city, right? Okay. Do you guys have any questions? Anyone?
I wasn't here back then, but can I take credit?
Absolutely.
I'd like to say
that credit goes both ways. Go ahead.
I know it's already been said multiple times, but I just think this is a perfect example of what right looks like when the government truly does what's right for the community, and recognize the city planning staff for coming up with such a creative solution. You know, something that I didn't even know was possible. So, but before we vote, I would just like to recommend to the planning staff that maybe a case study be done on this particular case that can be used for reference in the future, and how the city government can, work hand in hand with the citizens to have a win-win.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well said.
And in light of that, I'd like to move to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And this is for both items?
Yes. Items 6 and 7.
Yes. Done? Dunsky. Thank you.
Thank you.
We're going to miss you. Item number 8, PZDS 18-00036. Go home, Ivan.
Yeah, I need to take out my flashlight.
Just don't drive.
Thank you very much.
Bye. Get out.
Good afternoon, Chair and Commissioners. Ann Gayante with Planning and Inspections here to present on this item.
Give him a second. Can you all take your visiting out in the foyer, please? Thank you. Go ahead.
Okay. So this item is a request for a detailed site development plan approval for the property located at 1147 Vista de Oro. City Plan Commission approval is required due to an ordinance at the time of the subject property's rezoning many years ago prior to the issuance of building permits. This approval will allow for an existing storage structure to obtain its building permits. The subject property is approximately 2/3 of an acre, so 0.67 acres, and is currently used as a daycare center. That use is proposed to remain. Staff is recommending approval of the detailed site development plan. So this is an image depicting the zoning of the subject property, which is C4 with a special contract, as well as its surroundings. Surrounding, you can see there is a bit of C4 with a special contract. There's also PI, planned industrial, RF. That RF property is a drainage retention basin, and also M1. A little further out, we get into some of the apartment districts. This is an aerial photo depicting the subject property in its current configuration, as well as its surroundings. And this is a site plan superimposed on the aerial, showing the existing daycare center, the building constructed at the southerly portion of the lot, and the play area. It should be noted that the site plan demonstrates compliance with all applicable requirements, including those additional supplemental use regulations for child care centers of 2010.140, which impose additional requirements for child care facilities. So this again is a view of that site plan. And these are photos of that site plan submitted as elevations. This is a view of the subject property as it currently exists. And here's another view. And this is a view of the subject property within the context of its surroundings. North is zone C4 and PI, so that's commercial and planned industrial. And there are various commercial uses there. East is zoned M1, I believe, and it is a leather works, or they take leather and make it into things. South is C4 special contract, and there is a truck terminal there. And west is RF Ranch and Farm, and it contains a stormwater retention basin. Because this is a detailed site development plan, public notice was not required, and no public comment was received on this item. Planning staff is recommending approval, and the Development Coordinating Committee recommended approval. And with that, my presentation is concluded.
Thank you. Any questions for staff? May we hear from the applicant?
Good afternoon, Chair and Staff Commission.
Thank you.
We agree with all comments.
Can you state your name for the record, please?
Leith Labrado.
Thank you. Any questions for the applicant? Nope. This is under the public hearing section. No one signed up to speak on it. Now would be your opportunity. No one? We'll go ahead and close for further discussion or a motion.
Motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Item number 10, discussion and action on an ordinance amending section 19.20.070, deed conveyance, to clarify requirements for the conveyance instrument and to allow for deferral of delivery of the conveyance instrument under a particular circumstance. Sounds complicated, Nelson.
It's not.
Oh, sounds very fancy.
Nelson Ortiz with Planning and Inspections. Good afternoon.
Hi, Nelson.
Yes, this is a code amendment to Section 1920-07 deed conveyance of Title 19. The first, as you mentioned, aims to identify the conveyance instrument, the type of conveyance instrument. And finally, the second reason why we're proposing this amendment is to allow the deferral of the instrument to a different time.
Time or type? I'm sorry.
Type. I'm sorry?
Type, to a different type?
So the first one is to identify the type of deed, and then the second one is to allow the deferral of the delivery of the deed. Okay, and I'll get into both of them a little later. Okay, so this is the existing language. Currently, the language requires that in all instances, the applicant submit a deed at the time of recording the plat. Okay. While this language does coincide with the traditional process of subdivision acceptance, it doesn't take into account the instances when subdivision acceptance is deferred to after plat recording, and that's under a different section of the code. So the proposed language and the type of deed that we're requiring is a warranty deed, which will actually assure title, a clear title of the property that's being deeded to the city as parkland.
What was it before?
Yeah.
It didn't specify. It was just a deed, so it could have been any type of deed, quitclaim deed, warranty deed, what have you.
Or special warranty deed, which limits the time. Yeah,
correct.
got it.
So we wanted to make it clear that what we want to accept is a warranty deed. Okay. And then the next amendment is at the bottom, and it reads, if the subdivider has deferred the obligation to install public improvements to serve a subdivision until after recording of the final plat under this title, then the warranty deed as required in this section shall be submitted prior to final inspection of public improvements under this title. No acceptance of public improvements under this title shall be provided until the subdivider provides a warranty deed in accordance to this section. Delivery of a warranty deed does not constitute acceptance of any improvements by the city. The planning official will record the warranty deed following acceptance of the public improvements as provided in this title. Again, all of that second half refers to the exercise of section 190804 by the subdivider. Okay. The traditional process, typically when someone is dedicating a park to the city, they get the approval of the plat first, which happens here typically at CPC. They then go and construct the park, and then the city accepts the park after the completion of the improvements. The city then accepts the park, and then the plat is filed. That's the traditional way. And so currently the code again is requiring that the deed be delivered at the time of recording the plat. Okay. So there are other instances, which is not the traditional way, where a applicant may submit security to record the plat. Okay, so under 1908-04, a plat may be approved. The developer will start the improvements on the park, but not complete the improvements. They'll submit security to be able to file the plat, thereby deferring the improvements till after the plat is recorded. If that makes sense.
Security like letter of credit, right?
Letter of credit, bond, or irrevocable trust, a trust agreement.
Gotcha.
Those are the three types of securities. And so this is allowing the delivery of the deed to the acceptance phase, as opposed to the recording phase.
And this is only for park?
Yeah, this is just for parks. This is just for parks. Chapter 1920 is the park section. And that is the section of the code that allows the deferral of the improvements till after plat recording. Those are the three types of securities that may be submitted. And so again, to sum this up.
Can you explain to me how's it done today versus?
Sure. So the traditional way is approval of the plat, installation of improvements, completion of improvements, acceptance, and then recording.
Okay, and what's going to
Okay.
be the new way?
No, it's still like that, okay? It's still out like that. And the current code section, the current code section for under 192007 follows that traditional method, but it doesn't take into account instances in which someone defers the improvements till after plat recording.
So what's going to be the difference with this language?
So this will allow a developer to submit the
The
deed.
security with this, so.
No, to submit the deed at the time of acceptance of the park.
Mhm. And before, when was it submitted before?
It was always submitted at the time of recording the plat.
Okay.
It's just clean, they're just cleaning it up.
Yeah.
Okay. That it?
Questions?
Nope, I'm good.
Okay.
I think we're good. You did an excellent job, Harry.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Can we get a motion?
Motion to approve?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Item number 11, review CPC staff report redesign.
Good afternoon. Harrison Plurd with Planning and Inspections. So this is a very brief presentation. Included in your backup for this meeting were 2 sample updated templates for staff reports, one for a rezoning case and one for a subdivision case. And there are very minimal changes. Essentially, we're looking to streamline the formatting of the report and make it as easy to read, not only for you all, but for members of the public as well. We knew that there were some redundancies in terms of information being included multiple times in different sections, or kind of the same analyses being duplicated in the same staff report. So we tried to consolidate everything and include information in a logical manner and get rid of all of that redundancy. And overall, I think you're going to see that it's a slightly better layout and hopefully a little bit easier to read. Having said all of that, like I say, the changes are not major, and visually they're not hardly anything. The staff reports are going to look almost exactly the same. It's just the content is laid out in a slightly different way in some cases. So this is an example of the front page, your primary information for a rezoning case. I'm not going to go through it in detail because you have the copy in front of you. But essentially we've removed a bit of information. We've changed the wording on a few things, all again an effort of making it clearer for you all and for members of the public to get to the gist of the request as quickly as possible. So for zoning cases, there were 2 set tables in every staff report. What we found is that one of those tables was not we were not completing it for what it was really intended for. And that was an example of where information was being duplicated unnecessarily. So in the new format, you're going to see one table that has your analysis against Plan El Paso policies that are relevant. The copy of the rezoning application or staff report that you have has listed on the right-hand column of that table all of the questions that staff are going to be asking themselves in order to complete that analysis for that particular goal or policy from Plan El Paso. Up to this point, the zoning and subdivision cases have had a neighborhood character section, and that has primarily consisted of the surrounding zoning districts, and distance to nearest park and school. So that's going to stay in the zoning staff reports. And there's a description of what, again, we're going to be including in that section in the sample that you have. Staff is suggesting that we remove it from the subdivision staff reports, primarily because, as you all know, the commission has limited authority as to when they can recommend approval or denial on subdivision matters. So if something is meeting the applicable code standards, then CPC is obligated to approve of that application. So the information that is included in this neighborhood character section is additional information. It's not something that is relevant to that approval, and it's not something that's in Title 19 that we review for subdivision compliance. So that's the reason it's being removed. Having said that, if you all take a look at the staff reports and take a look at old staff reports too and see if you find that section to be helpful, or if you want it to be embellished upon because it helps you as a board think kind of long range and think about things that are development related, not specific to a particular case, that would help you make a decision in making recommendations about code changes, for example, to City Council in the future, then we can talk about including information like that in there, in a section like that. But for now, we're really trying to get the staff reports down to the information that is relevant to the recommendation that staff is making on the particular case. We're also adding back in something that used to be in the staff reports before they were redesigned a few years ago, which is the options that CPC has to take. This isn't so much for you all, because you know what options you have in terms of approval or approving with conditions or denial. It's more for the public, so that when they're reading the staff report, they know that for a zoning case, it's a public hearing and there are certain outcomes that are possible, and that the CPC is making recommendations to council. It's just helping them to understand the process.
If I may, in addition to what Harrison said, Harrison did a good job on the staff report revision. That last slide, when you're taking a vote on any zoning cases, we'll prefer that you read a section of that based on your recommendation. So if you recommend an approval with no conditions, just go ahead and pick either A, 1, 2, or 3. That's the intent of that, so that that would be on record. Okay, that based on staff report and based on your finding that you can select either 1, 2, or 3.
Thank you. We will. I will. I will. I do.
Chair, may I say something?
Yes.
I think that's a pretty darn good idea to include that back in here, because in the past, like, to try to make the, the recommendation or motion sound more formal, I've had to like go back in the slide and look at your, the way you all have worded it, so that's perfect.
Yeah. And if I may also, when you talk about this being visible to the public as well, is that just an effort to make our efforts and our purpose more transparent to them, so they understand what exactly our options are, that we're not just coming up with something at whim, I guess?
Well, because people often come in here and they come to City Council and they're confused about the actual process or what the action actually is on an item. So this is an effort to lay even more information out so that people have access to it.
Madam Chair and Commission, what you do here is a very legal process. So everything has to be very well documented, because as you know, somebody can call this up anytime and we'll be able to give them the staff report, because it's a matter of record. and they can read it, and based on your recommendation or the approval, they can at least match it to what is in the staff report.
Got it. Thank you.
So this is a example of a subdivision staff report. Again, they're very similar, just slightly different information for subdivisions than for zoning. And again, this is the section about CPC options is much shorter. And that's all I have for you. So please take a look at the samples that we've provided you. If you have any comments or questions or concerns, let us know. We're not going to implement these 2 weeks from now, but we're thinking maybe 4 weeks from now, so that you all have time to get any feedback to us, and then we can finalize and then get staff working on them.
If you have any questions or comments, please redline those and send it to us. We like to implement as soon as possible. We don't want to have another 6-7 weeks before we implement.
Got it. So this is just a presentation. There's no, okay.
Okay.
Sounds good. I noticed that we did not have a line item on the agenda with regards to accepting the previous meeting's minutes. Are we not doing that for some reason?
That was my mistake. We'll put it on the next.
On the next
agenda.
one, okay.
Yeah. Before you close your meeting, I would like to take this opportunity to introduce some of our new staff members. Some of you come to our offices. Some of you may be coming before you very shortly, but I want to make sure that you know who they are.
Okay.
I want to start with one of the new senior planners that we have, Karina. Where's Karina?
Karina.
So Karina was recently promoted to the senior planner position.
Nice, thank you.
Very
and
nice.
we have 3 new planners. We'll have them introduce themselves.
My name is Emily Diaz-Melendez.
Aaron Rodarte.
And nice to meet you all, David Samaniego.
David used to work for the city years ago when I was here, so he left before I left, and now he's back.
Now he's back. Well, great. Welcome
all
back
of
and
you.
welcome.
Congratulations.
Looking forward to working with all of you.
So as we get new staff, probably in the next couple of weeks, we'll be introducing new staff to you as well.
Wonderful.
Great.
Welcome.
Thank you. Now I'm going to go ahead and request a motion to close the meeting.
I move that we close the meeting. Motion to adjourn.
There
I
you
second
go.
that.
I don't remember that word. All in favor?
Aye.
Adjourn. I need to write that down. I cannot remember it. I always want to say